So, good morning, one and all. We are up to Sif Vav. Race demonstration and tests. Sif Vav is where we're holding right now. We last saw the case of doing Hatmana, where there's something covering, where there's two different. There are two different things going on. There is a davar she'eino nital, something you can't move, and the cover is something you can move. So if you can get to it, you're allowed to move the kedera out. That was last week. That was Dalet and then Hay as well. It's a similar situation. So let's look at Vav. This is actually relates to a little bit of a different halacha altogether. Yom Tov Shechalios Be'erev Shabbos. You have a holiday like we're about to have in a couple days, where Friday is a Yom Tov. Okay, Friday is a Yom Tov. So you want to have hot food for Shabbos. Remember that the laws of food preparation and cooking are very different on Yom Tov than they are on Shabbos. So now you want to have your hot food for Shabbos. Now you are allowed to do that preparation from Erev Shabbos into Shabbos. That's a whole discussion when we get to Hilchot Shabbat in 6, 7, 8 years. We'll get to that, and Be'ezras Hashem, and we'll talk about Erev Tavshilin and everything. But you're allowed to do food preparation from Erev Shabbos into Shabbos. So Yesh Misha Oser Lahatmin Avonim. If you want to do Hatmana on Friday, which is a Yom Tov, going into Shabbos, you want to do Hatmana in a pile of stones. Not sure why you'd want to do that in the first place. I mean, I understand maybe it insulates the food, but okay, it's a very specific case here. So some say that is not permitted. Mishum, why? To have a kemo because it's like building, right? If you take a bunch of stones and you pile them up on each other and you make almost a little box made out of stones. So that's like building. Okay, that is one of the malachos on Shabbos and relevant on Yom Tov too. V'yesh matirim, and there are those, of course, in Judaism who disagree and say it is permissible to do this act. So what's driving these two opinions? Take a look here. Now this may actually be more interesting than the actual the Hatmana and stones case, because those Hatmana and stones, I don't know that we're going to come across this in our lives. Take a look at Tes Zayin. Even if you had already designated these stones, so you've popped them out of the category of prohibited, and now they are in the category of permitted stones for Shabbos. The less bahen mishum muktzah, and there's no more muktzah concern here. In such a situation, you still can't, because it's some sort of building issue. Take a look at Yud Zayin. What is the building issue? Mishum dehave v'chulei. Hainu de sidur ha'avanim, the arranging of the stones. Dehave kamo dofen. It's like building a wall. Dehave kamo dofen. Have bichlal binyan arai. It is like building a temporary building. Ve'oster midah rabbanon b'yom tov, and that is prohibited from the rabbis on Yom Tov. Now, let me just clarify one thing, and when we get to this part of Hilchot Shabbos, which is much later on, we'll get there at some point. But when we talk about binyan, the prohibition of building on Shabbos, in order to violate the biblical prohibition, you are building a permanent structure. It's not like a little pile of stones. Here, this might be big, right? You have a pot that's maybe this big and this way, so you have to you got to build up this way. Okay, so you have a pile of stones, and it's arranged very nicely and neatly. That is very temporary. A binyan arai, a temporary building, like the word arai comes up in the beginning of Maseches Sukkah when you're talking about building a sukkah. A sukkah has to be a diras arai, a temporary dwelling place. And so but midrabanan, the rabbis made certain laws that mimicked the deoraisa. So when you're even building temporary structures, it's a whole question. It's a classic question to do. Can you build Legos with your kids on Shabbos, right? Because by the way, it's a question. Sometimes they're actually permanent. You build them and it's made to be in a certain way, right? And then you leave it there like a decoration forever. Like you build, my kids had birthdays recently, and I bought a Lego set for Aviva and for Yair. Aviva's was like a unicorn one, and Yair had some It wasn't Batman, but it was something like that. Some car or whatever with a lot of angry faces on it. And so the question is, like, once they finish building it, that was done. And even if you're building Legos, like you're free for all of it. Like you're building whatever you want. Certainly, it's definitely not in my estimation. It's not a Shiloh when it comes to the free play Legos. That stuff's you're gonna build it and you're gonna knock it back down, right? It's a more interesting question. I'm not gonna say I have the answer. I'll bring a lot here. I have to actually look it up a little bit. What happens if you're building a Lego set that's a Lego set? It looks like a particular character or whatever, and you're gonna build it, and then you're gonna put it up on the shelf, and that's it. Is that like a more temporary? Usually, we think of binyan also, though it has to be something that is fixed to the ground, which a Lego set is of course not. So we're thinking about building. You're really thinking about like building a house, fixing the wall, fixing something, a permanent structure. A closet in the house that you build, that you fix the closet, right? Something as a part of the structure. Lego certainly not, but the question is a Rabbanan a problem? I think if you're really just playing, a free play of Legos, I don't think it's probably an issue. But I have to get back to us. I have to get back to myself on this question, honestly.
Take those things apart and try to.
And they trash. Yeah, that's why you might even not. Then we do different things. So you're saying that it really is never permanent in that sense, right? Like a way, like you would think of a wall of a house or a closet door, even though yes, you might renovate at some point. We think of that as a very fixed and permanent structure. So siblings tend to destroy each other. Yeah. Yeah. So my gut tells me that like there's room here, but I don't. I want to double check. I think it's actually discussed in the Sefer Shmir Shabbos Gilchos. I think Legos already existed when he was around. Yeah, he talks about a lot of practical toys, questions of certain toys on Shabbos. Okay, so that is why it would be prohibited to use the stones. Not a muktzah issue, a midrabanan issue of binyan. Yurches, why? What about those who allow this? Why they permit it? Isn't this binyan arai? Yesh matir and the sphere lahu mishum dekvod Shabbos lo gozru. Since this all is for the honor of Shabbos, I want my food to be warm, to be insulated. Therefore, the rabbis never made or extended the gzeira of binyan arai to such a case. They would never have done it. Look, at the end of the day, if you can find another way to do hatmana. So asur l'kulei alma. Then everyone agrees it's asur to do it. Right? It's only if you're in a pinch, then some people permit it. But if you have another way, don't do it that way. The Eliyah Rabbah says that the custom is in accordance with those who permit the yesh matirim, which means that you could be lenient on this question. Right? You already have here an established minhag that is being reported on. The Chayin Kasav Garaz. I'm not sure who the Graz is. Let's look at I have a list of acronyms here. Who is the Graz? I forgot. I looked this up before. Here, Graz. The Eliyah Rabbah was an Achron. He was an Achron. I don't recall his full name. But he's an Achron. The Mishnah Berurah often will make note of him as someone he turns to for Psak Halacha. In the same way that he'll mention the Chai Adam at a certain amount of frequency. I could look up in a moment who he was. I don't have here the Graz. Steve Keller, I see you on there. Do you know who the Graz is? No, I saw the mouthing. No, okay, all right. If you find it, yours edition. I don't see it here in my Simani Rosh Tevos. No, I don't have it. Okay, if you find it, let me know. Okay, but bottom line is here. You have here a few different people who are following the more lenient opinion. So we have what to rely upon in the case of stones on Friday at the Yontif going into Shabbos. So if this Friday you want to do atmana in stones, you have yesh al mi lisnoch. Okay, here we go. Let's go back upstairs to Shulchan Aruch Sif Zayin. Panur shemanichim bo chamin v'sos ben piv bedaf v'shorkim perish machlikim Machlikin, oso betit. Mutter listar osa stima kedei lahotzi achamin, velachlar lusosmo. So if you have an oven in which you have some hot food, and the opening of the oven is closed with a wooden board with some sort of daf, this shorkin, which is a parish machlik, and you smooth it out, meaning, you have like a wooden piece, and then you smooth, I guess, over that with shorkin, also betit, and then you layer it with clay. So you really want to like almost like it's a sealed shut. So mutter listor osta, you are allowed to destroy this clay, to get in there, right? You're allowed to bust it open. Mutter listor osta stima kidei lahotzi acham, in order to get the food out. So you had it in there. It was it's insulated in the sense that it's sort of locked away in this thing. It's not. I want to be very careful here. This does not sound to me like a classic hatmana, right? That doesn't sound like that. Hatmana is insulated on all four sides of the pot. Now, so you can get this hot food out, v'lachazor, and then after you've, let's say, remove some of the food contents, you can return it and then seal it again. So again, here we're talking about there has to be grufo ktuma going on. We have to be dealing with a case where we're talking about akira, where in the times of where with akira you may be able to return things to an oven that's grufo ktuma. This goes back to our reviewing some of our laws from earlier that we learned. So how much this is relevant to our world, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure how many of you use clay anyways. But what's really important here are the underpinnings of this law, because it actually very much applies to our world of Hilchot Shabbat. The imiesh bo gechalim lo chashos. Let's say this oven now has gechalim lo chashos, and this is our gechalim lo chashos is almost in the word like to hiss, lo chashos, like to hiss. You ever try to listen to the coals when there are, they're really, it's almost like a little bit of hissing sound. I think that's what they're describing here. It's whispering. They're whispering, I guess. Smoldering, yeah, but the word lochesh in Hebrew, if I look it up here, actually I can't because I can't, I'll lose the feed here, but I believe you look up the word, it's like to like whisper. It's like that sound that like the coals are sometimes making when they're, I don't know if that's where it comes from. Bottom line is that they're really burning here. Mutar al yedei eno Yehudi. Then this is permissible according to the Shulchan Aruch only if you use a non-Jew. Okay, if you want to do it yourself, it sounds like the heat source is off. The heat source is, taken care of. If there's really gechalim lo chashos, if there are really coals there, then you can't do it yourself according to the Shulchan Aruch. Let's read the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah Berurah's comments on the Shulchan Aruch. Then we'll go to the Ramah. So we're going to continue now with Yud Tes. Mutar listor. You're allowed to remove the clay covering in order to get to the food. She'ein zeh bichlal stiras binyan, afilu midrabanan. There's a prohibition. You're not allowed to destroy. You're not allowed to take down a building on Shabbos. This is like construction is a very bad thing on Shabbos. Don't do construction on Shabbos. Okay, taking a structure down is a deoraisa. So if you, let's say, have you have a wall, you have something, and you decide this thing looks pretty, a little broken. You're like, I'll get to during the week, but I'm going to smash this piece right now off the edge of my, like, let's say you have, the siding of your house, whatever. Don't start smashing it. Okay. Bottom line is that's a deoraisa. But once again, the rabbis prohibited midrabanan the destruction of structures that are not affixed to the ground. Okay, so what about this structure? Now we have an oven, wooden board, clay covering. In order to bust it, and I have to, destroy this clay mold that existed. So that's not a problem, even midrabanan. Kaven shalonase lekiyum klal, because it wasn't meant to last. Like it was meant to be temporary. Lekiyum means like this is how it's supposed to be. That's why I had a question about the Legos, because the Legos, even though the brother and the sister don't want it to last very long, the original creator of it wants it to last a certain amount of time. But bottom line is here, this is definitely not a problem. So anything that's not na'aseh lekiyum, you're allowed to take it apart. That's okay. Most other toys where you are going to connect things. So let's say you have, for my younger children, I've always had it's like the large Legos, they're like super. So and then that way your 1 year old can, they're starting to. That stuff there's nothing there. My only question with the Legos is the permanent ones that are the ones with the little pieces, and that's something they're not permanent, but it's not selekiyum, because when the child makes it, they want it to the Batman car, so they want it to last, even though again, it's the brother and the sister don't care, and it would be nothing make them happier than destroying it, for them. But most other toys that are connecting and this that. You don't have to worry, because it's not selekiyum. It's not meant to last. Okay. So, okay, good. This is its own issue. He basically says here about returning it, and then closing it up, right? Like a stima is closing it up, so you can return it. The kamashu on the lot sarich lemecha shema yesh bifnim gechalim lo chashos. Hukashi yistemenu ligrom leishiyichbu. You do not. The rabbis did not make a gzeira here that you can never close this situation, lest it be a situation where there are coals there. And what would happen? This is very important. What would happen if I had coals there, and I close the only hole into this oven? What will happen to the coals? So, what do you say, Steve? I saw your mouth there. Go ahead.
They go out.
Why would they go out? Yes, good. Oxygen, yeah, good, excellent. If there's no oxygen flowing around, I remember when I was little, my dad was a chemist, so he, of course, decided that it's a fun experiment to show me a flame, and then he had put it inside a can or something, and then if you cover it over, the thing's going to go out. I was like, oh, it's interesting. So, yeah, if you have no oxygen, this thing won't work. So if you close up the hole, what are you doing? You are doing kibui. Kibui is extinguishing a flame. So the rabbis did not make a gzeira that you have to worry that you can't put it in this regular situation where it's warm in there, but there's no fire. Less that sometimes there's a fire, and then you'll be mechabed in the fire. So they didn't make such a gzeira. That's why it's okay to put it back in and to seal it back up. Okay, but now we understand when there are gechalim lo chashos, like the last case is a Shulchan Aruch, then it's only permissible with a non-Jew. The Jew can't do this directly. But the question is, I've told you many a times here, if you can't do it, you can't ask a non-Jew to do it. So how is it here that it is permissible? Al Yidei Ein Yehudi. Chaf Aleph. It's a little bit of a longer limud here. Aval Al Yidei Yisrael. Asr Listam. To do this by the hand of a Jew will be prohibited to close up to reclose the oven. There's no oxygen there. The coals will go out. You are taking an action which is actively going to extinguish the flames. Now they'll go one day that if they go out on their own, that's their own business. But you have now, by closing up the hole, you have now hastened the extinguishing of these coals. Come on, I don't have a kavanah for that. I wanted to just keep it warm, the food. My kavanah was not to extinguish the flames, right? I did action A, right? And yes, B happened, but that wasn't my intention, right? And the Torah tells us, Melechas machshavas asra Torah, that in order on Shabbos to violate one of the prohibitions, I have to have machshava. My thoughts are to do that action. If I had in mind to do action A and then B happened, well, that wasn't my thought. That wasn't my intention. And if B is, so just follow me here for a second. If B is not a certain outcome, right? And it happens sometimes when I do A, but not all the time, then A is always permissible no matter if B happens and B is prohibited. That's called a davar she'eno miskabe, something that I did not have kavanah for. And it happened, okay, but I had kavanah for A, right? I did this action to keep my food warm. It was not to extinguish the flame. Okay, but what's the problem here now? This is a case of psikresha. This is a foregone conclusion. If I choke out the oxygen from this place, the flame will go out. It's not a question of sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. So now what do we do? So he says, Oster, why is it not allowed by the hand of a Jew? Mishum psikresha. Here it's not allowed because it's undoubtedly going to happen. I've talked about many times in the case psikresha is the term that comes from you cut off psikresha, you cut off the head of the chicken because you wanted to give your child a toy. Turned out the chicken died in the process. Oops. Okay, that's not allowed because the chicken dying is a certainty. Aval ba'amira le'eno Yehudi. But if you tell a non-Jew to do it, we're okay with that. We're not so particular about that. Okay, and he says, "Kamosha cost of substitution of we learned Rishon Gimel. Like it was a long time ago because these are very dense simanim. I went to go. What was the case in Rishon Gimel? So if you went back, you see that where is it here? That there was a case where you put a pot on top of the fire, literally on top of the fire, and you wanted to remove it from the fire. So you're supposed to ask a non-Jew, the Rama says. Why? Because the fear is that when you pick it up, if it's literally sitting on top of the fire, on the coals or whatever, when you pick up the pot, this is kind of just your point about the wool, but this is a little bit different. Something's going to shake. And if you shake the coals, so you may cause a little extra flame at that moment. So they say, the Ramah says over there, if you don't have a non-Jew, so then the Jew can take it up, but they have to take it very carefully, right? They have to be very careful not to shake it. And if it does shake a little bit, well, it was a davar she'eino miskaven, because sometimes you can pick it up and nothing will happen. And sometimes it'll pick it up and something will happen. And that's okay, that's mutter. But you see already here this idea that when you're, when it's more in a psikresha category, when you're going to pick it up not so carefully, where undoubtedly something is going to move, then you should have a non-Jew do this action. Similarly here, if a non-Jew should do this psikresha, so how do we say that that's okay? How do we say that's okay? So this is a very important principle. A psikresha on a biblical prohibition, according to Tosfot, is prohibited. So if I have a psikresha, it's going to happen. Let's use the case that is in the. Let's use the cases in the Gemara. Let's say I have. I want there's those snails we make techelas out of. They're called the filazon. So if I want the dye, the blood essentially of this chilazon. So in order to get it, I have to squeeze it, which means I'm going to kill this thing. So if I do that, killing something, an animal, for example, I guess you could also use the case of the chicken with the toy. Killing an animal is a violation of shchita, one of the story malachos, and therefore, even though it was not my intention was to get the toy. My intention was to get the dye out of the worm, out of the snail. Excuse me. Not allowed, because I know with certainty that this creature will die. That's the doraisa. But if I have a derabanan, there's a case in the Gemara Tosfos I think brings up. Let's say on Sukkos, I need hadassim on my one of my 4 species. Hadassim sometimes can have berries. The Gemara describes they can have berries on the branch, but in order for it to be a kosher hadas, it's not supposed to have berries. So what if I pick the berries off? And it's a whole question whether the picking the berries off is a d'oraisa or the rabbanon, it's yontif, whatever. Bottom line is Tosfos over there concludes that if you have a d'rabbanon, a psikresha, where the secondary thing is the d'rabbanon, we will allow it to be psikresha de lo nichale, where I don't have any usage for B. Right, the berries are garbage. There's no usage for it. Then I'm allowed to go ahead and do it. So in this case, we have a psikresha, and I'll even argue that there's probably a double d'rabbanan here. Number one, the kibui here is not a kibui la'asot pecham. You're not trying to make what's pecham? Not charcoal, but Steve, what does the word pecham mean? You know what that word means? What was that?
It's like the chalk, ash.
Ash, right.
Oh,
So when I make the way that the oraisa is described is that in order to violate kiboy the oraisa, it's lasot pecham. It's to make the ash in order to use it for something. That was how it was in the Mishkan that they used, but that's all based on the melechas Mishkan. So when I'm doing kiboy anyways, and I don't need the ash that the leftover of it, so it's already the rabbanon. The usher is the rabbanon. Plus now I'm asking an anju to do it, which ash is already a derabbanon. So I have a double derabbanon here. So often also we say when you have two derabbanons coupled together, shvus to shvus, but moko mitzvah. Here we have a mitzvah of oneg Shabbos. The food is warm. It's no question. It's not a question. Of course, we would say it's permissible because of the double derabbanon. Plus, you may already have the psik ratio of the derabbanon category. So you have a bunch of larger principles at play here, and that's why we're okay with this. But if you did it yourself, we don't like that because it's a asur derabbanon, and you say, it's a psik ratio of the derabbanon, but it's when you do it when you're doing it sort of biyadayim, you're doing it with actively in a situation that you kind of set up. You're not supposed to create a priori a situation of secretion. You shouldn't rely on that. If it happens on Shabbos, then you can go ahead and do it. But here, I wonder if this is just too much of you set it up. It's before Shabbos, you set up the situation, so you're causing the secretion to happen in the first place. Okay. This is the larger topic that's going on behind the scenes. Okay, well, let me just finish this up and then I'll stop. If you don't close it up the whole way when you're reclosing it, afilu alida Yisrael shar, then it's okay because you're not extinguishing the oxygen. You're not extinguishing it because the oxygen will flow. Because it's not going to go out. The cost of magen on the dafka shemiach harbor of that pasuach. That's if it's very open. If it's just a little open, yesh lesor mishumavir. Then it's going to cause havar. It's going to cause a kindling of the flame because why? He says the teva haruach, the way of wind, the nature of wind. Leos mefiach derech nekev katan. If it's a small hole, the air will flow very quickly through that. V'damela mapuach, and it's like blowing. Umavir yotzir atanor, and that will really get the flame moving. Meilu haya pasuach lagamay, as opposed to if it was just open all the way. Now, Kostav ha'Eliyah Rabbi, the Eliyah Rabbi here writes, in a situation where you're in a pinch, Motor ha'Yisrael listo matan rafilu b'yesh ha'kachalim lo chashos. He says here, you can do it, no problem. He says you can go ahead and close the oven, even when the gechalim are burning, with great force, like I said before. Ki yesh lismoch al das trumas hadeshes shemekel, who spherele the lopes have a psik reisha sheyichbu ha'gechalim al yedei astima. He thinks, and I don't know if it's scientifically accurate, he thinks that if you close it up legamre, that the Trumas Hadeshim says it's not a psikration. It's not psikration. It's not a foregone conclusion that they will go out. It's a davar she'eino miskaven, which is mutter. So you have what to rely upon. I would say it makes sense to say in a real pinch, you could say it's a psikration alonichale on a derabanan. That would have been I would have thought they would go there, but okay. If there is a fire actually really burning in there, right? Not just the coals are really hot and they're kind of glowing. Even the Trumas Hadeshin would say that's not okay. That will cause the flame to go out quickly. If there's actually a flame there, if it's just hot coals, that he thinks is not a secretion. I'm not the scientist. I question. I'm just not sure if that's really the case. I think if you did close it, I think the coals would go out faster without the oxygen. That would be my scientific guess. This is all about closing the oven. Or opening the oven. Again, opening it. If there's actually kachalim lo chashos, it's definitely prohibited to open the oven in the first place. If you know there are coals that are burning there, you're not allowed to open that. Even if it's not saruk betit, even if it's not layered or smoothed out with the oven, with clay. Why can't you open the oven? Daharuach mavir esag gecholim. The moment you open it, the air will swoop in, and that will kindle the flames, and that's a oraisa. That's not even a darabanan. Now I have a ratio on a oraisa. Yes, my intention was to get the food out, but now I have just created the oraisa, and that for sure, we won't allow. Okay, well, I know people have to leave, so we're gonna, I think, stop here. We'll see next week the Ramah's opinion about this whole Inyan as well, and we'll probably get to the end of the Ramah and the end of this Siman, and we'll finish up the Mishnah Berurah. Probably then the week after that, we'll do our the Mishnah Berurah's summary of the laws of Shehiyah, Chazara, and Hatmana. And then probably after that, we'll move on to a sort of a new topic within Hilchot Shabbat about Achnasas Shabbos and Adlakas Meros. Will be a long topic, which will get us into a whole discussion about Shavos Manios and the various opinions about when is Seisa Kochavim. There's a lot of opinions. I once did a little piece to everybody when we were doing Kriya Shema Shal Arvis. But I borrowed from this area, so we're going to see there's a lot of writing about this topic about when is not the Shkia, but when is, more importantly, when is Seisa Kochavim. And we'll talk about the standard opinion. We'll talk about the Rabbeinu Tam's opinion, where Rabbeinu Tam's get is from. A fascinating topic that will probably take us a number of weeks to get through. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll pause the recording here. Stop the live stream.